trouble getting through checkpoints to the best of your knowledge, except for any anecdotes that may be out there.
Thank you.
My questions are this. First of all, what was the situation of these 169 Americans that required U.S. troops to go outside the perimeter and get them? Why these 169 Americans? When did this happen? How long did the mission last? Was it 169 Americans altogether? Did you feel you had safe passage from the Taliban? Tell us more about this.
I don't have that level of detail. General, do you have any context?
I'm sorry. U.S. troops went outside the wire at the airport to rescue 169 Americans, and that's what the president said. And neither of you have any additional information about
Barbara,
that.
I'm happy to take the questions that you've asked back and try to provide additional context. I do not have that level of tactical detail here today, but I'm happy to take those questions and I'm happy to go look and see if we can find answers for you on that. Absolutely. But as my understanding of what happened was they were really just outside the wall. It wasn't very far to go. It was in a relatively short period of time, and it wasn't a rescue so much as assisting them getting onto the field. So I think that's the context in which I understand the incident. Your questions are fair. I will go back and see if we can provide additional context.
Can you also tell us then, just for the record, have American troops in any other instance or circumstance gone outside the wire at the airport, gone into the city to get people? Have American troops at all left the airport to go get people? And you said you had extended capacity, so do you now, the Secretary said the other day, you didn't have the capacity to really go get Americans. So do you now have the capacity to do that? And is there any other circumstance in which you've done it?
I don't know of any other circumstance. And yes, since Wednesday, since the Secretary spoke to you, we have flown in, and you've heard the General update you literally every day. We have flown in additional capacity, additional forces. Security is in a more stable position at the airport. So if there would be a need to do something additional to help Americans or other people at risk that we need to get to the airfield, we would examine those options, tee them up, weigh the benefits versus the risks, and then offer up opportunities to the Secretary to make a recommendation, and we would go from there.
So now, just to make sure I understand what you're saying, for the first time, this many days into the operation, the U.S. military has the capability and capacity to go into Kabul and get Americans for the first time.
We have additional capacity now as we have flown additional forces in. But as I said earlier, I'm not going to talk about potential future operations one way or the other. And every decision that is made has got to be weighed against the risks and the benefits of what you're doing. The other thing I'd say, Barb, is, as I mentioned to Tom, there hasn't been that demand signal now. Most Americans are they're getting through the checkpoints and they're getting on. I'm not suggesting that in every case it's gone unimpeded.
Why did you wait so many days to have that capacity?
We didn't wait so many days, Barb. We have been flowing in forces consistently over the course of the last week, and we have been nothing but transparent to you about what we've been flowing in. So again, we will obviously do whatever we can. And if there's a need to do this, and it's an operation that we can talk about, we'll talk about it. Okay? Yeah.
Defense Secretary Austin just now in a briefing call with House lawmakers said the reports Americans have been beaten by the Taliban in Kabul. Is the U.S. military under orders to stay at the airport and not go protect them?
I think we've been talking about this throughout the entire briefing. We're certainly mindful of these reports, and they're deeply troubling. And we have communicated to the Taliban that that's absolutely unacceptable, that we want free passage through their checkpoints for documented Americans. And by and large, that's happening. And as we've talked about before, the mission right now, as you and I are speaking, is to keep security at that airport sound and to keep air operations moving, even after this delay. I'm not going to speculate about any changes to that mission at this time. If there's a change and we feel like we need to execute that change, then we'll do it.
Does that require a conversation with the Taliban, or coordination?
I'm not going to talk about potential future operations and what that would look like in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I haven't gone to the phone yet. Tracy Wilkinson.
Hi, thank you. Just to follow up on my colleagues' questions, we have reports of American helicopters going out and picking up people from multiple locations, both Americans and Afghans. So I want to understand how that mission has changed, that you actually, despite what Generals Austin and Milley said yesterday, you are actually going out of the airport and picking up people. Can you elaborate on that,
Can't
John?
confirm those reports, Tracy. Not at this time. Yeah, Megan.
So I feel like we're kind of bifurcating the issue between Americans and Afghans. You said Americans are not having any issues, and you've settled with the Taliban that they're not going to have any issues, but have you made that same negotiation over Afghans? Because that's where most of these reports are coming from, that Afghans,
Yes.
even credentialed, are not being allowed through.
We've seen those reports too, Megan, and we have made it clear to the Taliban that these Afghans with the proper credentials should be allowed through the checkpoint. And again, Megan, I certainly we recognize that there have been multiple cases of Afghans, even some credentialed Afghans, being assaulted and beaten and harassed, no question. But by and large, those Afghans who have the proper credentials, and we have made it clear to the Taliban what those credentials look like, what they are, by and large, they are getting through the checkpoint. And we have not seen that become a major issue.
My other question is, now that the president has opened the door to possibly having some rescue missions into the city, are commanders on the ground now speaking with the Taliban about, letting those missions go off unobstructed?
Well, first, I just want to say those discussions with commanders and the Taliban haven't stopped, right? That's a continuous piece of what's been going on. So I think the question you asked is, are we talking to the Taliban to go out and rescue folks? Like Mr. Kirby said, that is not, those demands have not been brought to the commanders as of yet.
But the president has opened up that possibility, so it would stand to reason that commanders would start
I think
laying
we all
the
heard
groundwork
that.
for that
I think,
if
I think we
that was
all
gonna
heard
happen.
that same comment from the president today to ensure that we use all the capability we have to meet the mission.
So as of now, they're not asking for that specifically, or planning for that.
That's great. As of this point, you just said two things. You said
Yeah.
planning and asking. As I've always said, prudent military planning is always continuously happening. We are always forecasting for those type of things and planning for that. Requests, no. I can report that that hasn't yet. We have not received those.
Yeah, Tony.
A couple of questions. One of the communications with the Taliban, General, are these fairly regular calls to the Taliban, a la deconfliction with the Syrian army, you recall those, or the Russian army? Deconfliction calls are regular, and is there fairly good communication? Do they speak good English? Do they understand what we're conveying?
So let's just talk about communication at echelon, meaning, from higher to lower. I think those continued regular talks at the TPC at that level, those things continue. You heard reported earlier in the week from Mr. Kirby, about CENTCOM commander having communications. CENTCOM has other military channels open that are as continuous at that level. Then at the tactical level, as we speak, at the two-star level, forward, those type of talks happen. And these are the discussions that are happening to allow the further increase of information to the checkpoints of who needs to come through, what passes look like, what are the right credentialing to get through, who needs to come. And then, that at the lowest tactical level, those other discussions, of course, those are always, I would say, probably a little harder, just the community, but those are happening. Making sure that what needs to be communicated is done.
While I got you up there too,